So one of my favorite things when I call you is if I'm looking at a deal, I'm like, hey, you've probably lent on this block before, right? You've probably looked at something. I can't imagine a street you've not done a deal on this thing.
If you really just, if I could dot a map of every house I've been in and made an offer or bought, or, you know, and it's just, it's all over the place. I mean, people think this is BS, but I was going down the street somewhere and my head is spinning around the road. I used to own the house. Or I made an offer on the house. You know, you do that. If you've been out there. But this is 22 years, not, 22 months.
Yeah. And a couple of real estate cycles, so you're going to be a good one for this panel. Next guest, Chris Bounds. Chris, you've been investing since you were in college, if I'm not mistaken.
College, flipped 4 houses.
Flipped 4 houses in college.
The definition of broke, no money, no credit. Well, no, I had credit. I had credit debt.
Yeah, there you go. You know how to use the credit.
Yeah.
So now you're still flipping the whole. Well, you're doing a lot more rental properties these days.
Yes, I've realized flipping's a good way to make money, but the money stops once it's sold. So we're trying to hold more.
Yeah, makes sense. You're welcome to the club, right? Sean Harvey, commercial real estate broker. How long have you been doing this? 15, 20 years?
I'm not going to tell you. I've started at college. So
okay,
I've been
so
doing
right
commercial
out
real
of
estate out of college, which is way more than 15 years.
Yeah, way more than 15 years. So
70?
That's way closer than 15.
Actually, I'll give you one of my favorite little stories is you used to work for Sam Zell. If you guys know who Sam is.
My first job out of college.
Yeah. Sam Zell is, he will probably be regarded as the best probably the best real estate investor of all time. Guys,
100%. He started by himself.
Yeah.
Through a multi-billion-dollar global company.
Yeah.
In real estate.
And he wears jeans and t-shirts when they interview him on MSNBC and all that other stuff. He's a character. If you guys don't know who Sam Zell is, he's an absolute character.
He owns a large mattress company. He owns Schwinn. He owns a lot of stuff you don't know. But yeah, so it just so happened that the executive floor elevator was the same elevator I took to work every day for 3 years. And it also happened that I just happened to get there about the same time Sam Zell. So I rode the elevator with him many times. And if you didn't know who he was, you wouldn't know who he was because he wore a t-shirt, jeans, and Vans to work every day.
Interesting guy. So you've been doing this for a little while. So commercial real estate expert here. All right, guys, the name of the panel is, where do you think the real estate market's going to go in the next 5 years? And we'll just go ahead and start with my favorite topic, and that is there going to be a crash? And we'll start with Eddie on the end there. Eddie, do you think this market is going to crash? It's going to be like all over again?
You got to define a crash.
You know what?
Is it going to change direction? It's going to happen. We just don't know when. Everybody's got a little opinion. And guess who I talked to this morning?
Who's that?
Mark Botcher.
No kidding. How's he doing in lockdown? I see he's doing some stuff online.
Yeah. But we didn't get into what was going on. I booked him for a jet meeting.
Okay.
And he's October.
Oh, excellent.
He's going to come speak to us. But he and most of the other economists, most of them will only reach out 12 months at a time. They just won't put the reputation much longer. Pretty much the consensus is the next 12 months is going to be more of the same of what we have now. More of the same. And eventually it's going to turn, and I think it, and I've said this a zillion times, there's lots of factors, but the one factor, if you got to say one, that's going to cause the change is when these interest rates that are really down here, they're not here, they're down here, start to rise.
Yeah.
That's the trigger. And we don't know when that's going to happen. It's going to happen. We don't know when.
I think the market was freaking out because I think we're looking at a 75 basis point rise starting in the end of next year or 23. And I just thought, that's it? I was like, that's it? Not a whole lot.
Yeah. Well, the Wall Street Journal Prime, which is what small banks borrow from big banks, is what Chuck Lindley borrows its money at. That's 3.25 to 1. Now, we don't get it at 3.25, we get it at 3.25 plus a factor.
Right, yeah.
But Wall Street Journal Prime is 3.25 today, and it's been there for a while.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be surprised if sometime in 2022 that number starts to come up, but that's short-term rates.
Yeah.
Okay. The long-term rates is more of a factor of inflation in the 10-year Treasury bill. Okay. And that's the two factors that normally drive the long-term rates up. But you can still today, on your 30-year mortgages for owner occupants, those numbers are still hovering in that 3 range. You know, and that's
Probably one of the cheapest, probably the cheapest in your career, huh?
it is.
Yeah.
It is. Well, we were at 2.6 not long ago, and that's cleaned up a little bit. But you're kind of hovering, depending on the lender and the fees, over 2.8 to 3.1, 3.15 is kind of where they're at.
Okay. Chris, what do you think? World's gonna end in 5 years? What are we gonna do here? What's going on in the market?
I mean, I don't disagree with anything Eddie has said, but I will say it's hard to crash a market that we've got more than 50% of the market is gone. Like it's not even on the market anymore. Inventory. But define crash. And when we have 1.2 months of inventory, like are people going to be saying we're in a crash when that goes up to 2 or 2.5? When you don't get 15 offers on your house in Sienna Plantation and you put it on last weekend, is that a crash? I'm getting antsy because we got a house in Conroe. It's been on the market for 30 days, and I think we'll sell it. We'll end up selling. We got a few offers coming in now for about 50 grand over what I bought it, what I targeted my exit price at. So I'm about 50 grand over, but it's taken about 30 days to get that. I was getting antsy, but I put perspective on it. 6 months is normal, right? That's
Right, yeah.
So is that what we're defining a crash? Ultimately, we've got low inventory. I think it'll take a while for that to come back. On top of that, we've had this whole inventory problem we've had before COVID. COVID just made it worse. Now we've got supply issues, costs. We've got labor issues. All that stuff takes time. And then we're still a growing economy from a population standpoint. So is it going to correct? Yes. What that looks like, I'm not sure. As far as inflation and all that's concerned, that's one reason to own more rentals, right? That's a hedge. So I think in the near term, things are looking pretty good. In the long term, who knows? If you buy at a discount, should be all right.
Sean, you're in commercial real estate. All I've heard for the last year is how commercial real estate's gonna crash and we're gonna get office buildings for like $10.
I'll buy them all.
Yeah, well, and you guys work with a ton of investors, so kind of give us your perspective on the commercial real estate landscape.
Well, land is going up faster than anything. So if you're trying to buy land, good luck. If you think you're putting your house on the market, you get 5 offers and all above ask. Well, the same thing happens in land, except for like 40% above ask, or you don't get it. So land is going crazy. Industrial never stopped. It's going crazy. We have about 36 or 38 brokers that do industrial. We have about 600 signs out in front of industrial buildings in Houston, Texas area. And last year we did about $500 million in sales for industrial. Just over, and this year we'll probably do $600 to $700 million in sales in industrial. So industrial's still crushing it, and the values are going up and up and up. Matter of fact, me and a couple of my partners have money we're trying to put in industrial. We can't find one for a decent deal because they're getting bid up. Office got soft because everybody went to work from home. The industrial side, I mean, basically, if you're not coming in the office, the industrial side, then your business is no longer there because you're probably manufacturing something or whatever. So those guys never really went home. They couldn't, or else they had to close the doors and everybody was out of a job. On the office side, the Smaller buildings like yours, or in the, anything under 100,000, 150,000 square feet, did okay, because they're mostly mom and pop companies who again can't send all their people home, or they have to close the doors and say, well, you can work from home, but it's not for me, because I'm going bankrupt if you're all going to work from home. So some of them close their doors for weeks, but it was never months, because they don't have enough reserves to close for months. Now, the bigger Class A buildings, those companies did send most of the people home. If you've been downtown Houston, there's more people probably in El Paso, Texas downtown than there is in downtown Houston. It's just a ghost town. All the restaurants are closed because there's nobody to eat. The retail's just no retail. There's nothing around them in Houston. So they'll take a hit. The true occupancy last I heard of people in downtown Houston was 10 to 12%. 10 to 12% occupancy, not least of the actual occupants. So if a building only had, let's say, 5,000 people in it, they had like 500. And so, but that will translate to eventually leases being broken or leases downsizing and that such. But on top of that, the good news is most companies had employees start coming back June 1st. Most larger companies, not all employees, but they're going to bring them back slowly. I know we're in Murphy Oil Building, and Murphy had a big portion of their people come back June 1st. They have another big portion coming back, I believe it's September 1st, and the final one will be October, November, and then they'll be back to 100% going at it. And they're actually expanding right now. So Murphy Oil is actually expanding during the pandemic, along with some other companies that have taken advantage of we need to expand. Our employees aren't here. It's a lot easier to expand while employees aren't here. But then you have other companies that are going to be downsizing because they're going to have their employees stay home for a little bit longer. So, market is soft in office. Not that there's a lot of deals, because we have investors call us every day. Hey, where's the deal at in Houston, Texas? Well, you and 10 other people want the deal, and so when you all go after the same deal, it no longer is it a deal because it gets bid up. So there's not really, it's not that soft.
Yeah, that's when you and I were chatting. That was one of the multiple times we've had conversations. Is the market's soft. It's like, okay, sweet. I gotta buy. We actually have to buy 14 more of these centers across the country. And he's like, yeah, you and about 500 other dudes when we do the same thing, all trying to buy. And it just, the market's soft, but there's still buyers out there. And that was a shocker for me.
And the problem is, are you going to say you're building in a soft market?
No.
Yeah. So there's anybody else that doesn't have to, right? So that's the other problem is no one's going to sell in a soft market. They're going to wait. So the ones that are going on the market, there's very few and far between, and you have 100 people, including, it's big enough, you have investors out in New York, Chicago, LA, going, yeah, we need to put money in too. So go after that building. I know it's not something we know about, but we put $10 million somewhere of our $200 billion fund, we can't find anything to buy with, go buy it. So just keep the prices high.
What's interesting, kind of part and parcel of that, is we're having conversations with banks about refinancing this building. We bought it, owner finance, did the rehab, obviously getting it stabilized, and we were having a conversation with two banks, and they said, rates aren't as good as they were 12 months ago. We think we could do 3.25% interest for you guys on this building. I'm like, are you kidding me for a commercial office building? I was like, you gotta have the poker face and go, I don't know if the number's gonna work for us. So anyways, the whole idea that office space is just this bloodbath, there's all these deals out there, couldn't be further from the truth. It's just not there. So you had mentioned something, we'll get started with Eddie on this next question, and perfect transition here. Should I wait for the market to soften to buy, let's say, single family real estate? Like, should I be waiting, and I don't know what waiting means. I mean, years, 2 years, 6 months, should I be waiting for some event where the market softens a little bit and I'm able to buy single family real estate?
You mean to buy them for investment purposes?
Yes, sir.
That's what you mean, right? Well, let me kind of give I don't mean to be real long, but I'm going to give a little bit of a long answer. The market that most of us play in as a real estate investor is not the MLS market. We're playing in the distress market. And I had a very smart gentleman 22 years ago tell me something that I believed it was true, then, and I believe it to be true now, the numbers may change a little bit, but those numbers that he told me 22 years ago was that regardless of the market that you're in, the distressed market's 2 to 6% of that market. So if you look back at the number of houses sold according to Houston Association of Realtors last month, that number was right around 9,000. Okay? So if you use the 2 to 6% rule, you can do your own math, but that's 180 to 600 houses basically was in the distressed market. Those, a few of those are found on MLS, but the majority of those houses are not on MLS. So to answer your question, the answer is yes, you should, but most of us, certainly not really, and the people that I'm really close to in this business, we're not buying on MLS. We're getting into living rooms and kitchens of people that's owned it a while, or people that's inherited it, or for whatever reason they called an investor to come out and look at their house and they didn't call REMAX or EXP or Gary Green and Keller Williams and all the others. They called an investor. That's the market we're playing in. So you should be offering your offer should be at a discount. And if you're successful in buying, and we are successful today buying houses, even in this crazy market, because we're not, we're not buying off MLS. That answer you give. So the answer is yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. So you gotta get into why that is, you know?
Yeah, you're not buying $500,000 homes that are beautiful on MLS in the Woodlands. Like that's not the marketplace.
And you could, if you wanted to hold them, I guess, but that's not the market that's not the way I approach the business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to get into the kitchen and living room of someone who wants to sell to an investor for whatever that driving reason is today for a cash discount as is and be gone soon. Or get their money and lease back. We get a lot of that today. I get more of that today than ever.
Yeah, probably because they're having problems finding the next house, right?
That's part of it. That's part of it. That's each one's got their own reason, but yeah, that's part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell a quick story. It's closer. You guys know if I can run to it, I promise. I have a big house in Austin. I just for kicks and giggles, I put it on Orfino to see if they were playing. And it was unbelievable that they were playing for this house. But they wanted to break it. So I went to my tenant, and they're about 6 months into a 24-month lease, maybe 7 or 8 months. So they got over a year left. I said, he goes to put my mind to you. I offered them $10,000 to leave. They said no. I offered them $20,000 to leave, cash. They said no. I went all the way to $40,000, y'all, to ask them to leave. And the tenant, never in my wildest dreams would I ever thought that would happen, and I couldn't believe it was happening. But I got all the way to $30,000 because this open door offer is ridiculous. And they wouldn't leave. They said, Eddie, we have no place to go. They're nice people. I didn't push them anymore. I didn't really. I asked nicely. They said, thank you. But I mean, I took that deal over and did okay on my but not in Austin. And this is a nice house.
Yeah. Chris, should we be waiting for this market to soften and these?
Yeah, on the retail side, I would not want to be looking for a house right now. A friend of mine helped him sell his house, got him a good deal. He's buying another house. He offered, it was like 90, I think he said it was like 95,000 over list. Still offered. He didn't get it. And that was his second one. He ended up going to a completely different price range to get what he wanted. So I wouldn't want to compete, and that's not every submarket, but it's pretty darn common. If it's a nice house, nice community, nice school district, I mean, it's just kind of what we're looking at because there's 53% less houses on the market than last year. So on the retail side, I wouldn't want to play that game. Who knows, maybe you get some equity if you stay there for a while. But on the wholesale side, which is where we all are, if you're buying at a discount, no, like, this question is always there, like, I think the market's too hot, I'm gonna wait. But on the retail side, someone, I saw this was based last year compared to this year, and it showed the cost of waiting. So they're, from an equity standpoint, I forget what the spread was, but the cost of waiting from the retail side was not in their favor. You're still gonna pay more, but on the wholesale side, I'm a buy and hold guy. The good thing about buy and hold is I don't have to make my money in 90 days, 120 days, which if you buy it at a good price, it's easy to make money on a flip today, but on buy and hold, I can make my money over time. And I'm really, really excited about, like, there's one rental we were thinking about selling. And I did the math, and it's worth 30 grand more than what I figured it was worth 6 months ago. I was like, I'll just refi, pull out 30 grand, I don't have to sell it. And I'm just going to keep it that way because you can't build houses that cheap anymore. So, yeah, if you get good opportunities and you've got the ability to, with reserves and management and all that, to hold properties, like, at the end of the day, we flipped 200 or so houses. I'm more happy with the houses we've held. We've done so much better with those. And that's a retirement. Here's one big secret that a lot of people don't know, and I've talked to you about it, Jason. 5 houses. If you buy 5 rentals, you're a millionaire. You just have to let your tenants pay them off. You can't retire early, but if you buy them just 1 a year, 5 years, 1 a year for 10 years, you've got $1 million portfolio over time. And for most people that aren't trying to be an next Grant Cardone, that's a pretty good addition to their retirement.
Sean, should we be waiting? Should I be waiting for my next 14 buildings?
You're gonna be talking about commercial or? Also,
Yeah, you also does residential. So why don't you take both? You wear both hats.
I mean, so like this, I don't sell houses. I buy and hold. That's all I've ever done. So my philosophy has always been soft market, hot market, sideways market, upside down market. If the numbers make sense, I'm buying the house. I don't care. If the market drops out tomorrow 15-20%, I bought the house right, it doesn't really matter. If I got 10 and pay me rent, my mortgage is still my mortgage, my taxes are still my taxes, my insurance is still my insurance. So numbers don't matter. If you're flipping houses, you know, there's always a bigger risk. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Like, if in January I told you, man, just get ready. We're going to have a bunch of price break in freaking Houston, Texas, everywhere. You looked at me and thought I was freaking nuts, right? But, you know, stuff like that happens. So you never know. I mean, the market control, you just don't know it. So you always real risk and flip. It's always a risk of some sort. But there's always risk in everything you do. I mean, Alto's up in the river. You know, he gambles in the invests in the stock market. There's a risk for it. There's everything you do. You know, when we buy office buildings, there's a risk in office buildings. But in general, real estate is more stable than anything you're going to buy. That's why MetLife and big institutional guys buy office buildings, right? Because they got to have a set amount of cash coming back in every month. And they're not looking to make a killing off everything they do. They're just making sure that their money is cash flowing because it has to for their business model to work. That's why those guys invest billions and billions of dollars across the United States. And they wouldn't do it if it didn't work. So they'll invest in a hot market, they'll invest in a soft market. It doesn't matter. They'll invest if their numbers make sense, the numbers make sense.
There was a real estate meme that's been making its way around Facebook. And it said something to the fact of, hey, if your spouse doesn't like the house but you do, it's easier to find a new spouse than a new house in this market. And I thought that perfectly captures the frustration of the retail market. You know, to kind of go back to what Chris said, and especially in particular with Eddie. My brother lives in Austin, and when they were looking, he and his wife were looking for a house, $400,000 or $500,000 house. We're not talking about, you know, really expensive house, $400,000 or $500,000. And anytime they go to a showing, the agent would say, look, if you're not at least 60K over list, we're not even going to look at the offer. They would get 30 offers the first day it was on the market. Now, what's interesting is I'm talking to some retail mortgage companies, and they're telling me certain sides of town in Houston are starting to experience that now. Because a lot of times what happens in Austin ends up here, it just takes a little bit longer. So I think we're going to get into this really competitive marketplace here. There's going to be no inspection contingencies. There's going to be no appraisal contingencies. It's like, here's the house, take it or don't. We don't care. There's 50 other offers coming in. So this idea of sitting and waiting is probably not going to be a good strategy. So speaking about strategy, I'm going to start with Sean. We're going down the panel here. What strategies should we be doing here in a marketplace like this with limited inventory, lots of buyers? Financing is great, right? That's one great thing about this marketplace right now. But what are the things that we should be doing to give us that competitive edge to get that property under contract?
Well, financing is great, thanks, Eddie. I do most of my business with that, my single family.
I'm sorry, Sean, they didn't hear you.
I think you're the one that can't hear me. What's the question again? No. Yeah. So here's what I'm just telling you. Buy. And again, it goes back to, like Chris said, buy a house, whether it's 1 or 5 or 10 or 50 or 500 or 2,000 like Eddie. Buy a house. The scariest thing is the first house you buy, you're less scared of the second one, by the third one, you're like, holy crap, this is easy as hell, right? So just, if you buy the house and you do it one time, you'll realize it's not as bad as it seems, and then just keep buying as fast as you can buy them. Sometimes you have to work a full-time job, you can't buy 1,700 houses, you can't buy 1,700 houses, but you can buy 7, you can buy 17, so just buy them.
The question was, what can you do to buy houses?
Yeah, what's the strategy we should be using in a marketplace like this, where it's super competitive, there's not as much inventory? Like, what are you guys doing to get those properties under contract?
It has to be market differentiation. So there's 30 people looking for the retail house. Well, there's also 30 wholesalers looking for that fixer-upper. So, if you're looking for deals from wholesalers, you're going to pay 85, 90, 95, maybe 100%. I've actually bid on properties that I was going to hold as a rental, that's in the path of progress, that I was happy paying more than what I normally would, and I still lost it by a huge amount. For someone that makes sense, whatever, but if you want the deals, you're going to have to go out and find them yourself. If you're waiting for wholesalers, if you're waiting for the great deal on MLS, you'll either pay a lot more, or you'll be waiting a long time for this cycle to pan down. So differentiate yourself. Also figure out and differentiate yourself within the end person. If you're just saying, hey, I can offer all cash, close in 10 days. Is there anyone here who can't offer all cash and close in 10 days? You got this guy, he can make sure it happens. So everyone says that. How are you any different? Figure out how you're different. Also, figure out the highest and best use for that house. Maybe it's not to flip. Maybe it's not a traditional rental. The great thing about Airbnb and the Vrbo platforms is it gives you the ability to own McDonald's all over the world. So McDonald's, they have the ability to buy the most expensive real estate all over the world and just put a hamburger stand to pay for the real estate. Well, you can do that with Airbnb or VRBO to get much higher rents than what your long-term rents are to pay for the asset in really nice locations. It's just an extra end use for the property that maybe you weren't thinking about before, so maybe you could pay a little bit extra. Be careful. I don't like getting into any type of deal that only has one exit strategy. So if you're only going in with no equity and it only works for Airbnb and then something like COVID happens and you can't do that, that's bad. But I just said it's just one extra thing that you can use in your equation. Maybe that's how you can pay a little bit more than normal. It still makes sense. Maybe you can't Airbnb it, it just rents out and it's like a break even. That's better than losing money. So you at least have multiple exit strategies and don't pay it off. Other than that, if you got your license and you can't outbid all the other wholesalers, you can at least throw that out there. One way or another, I can make sure that you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, get the most money in your pocket. Just have a conversation. Maybe it is, I buy your house and close next week. Maybe it's the traditional listing. Let's just see what kind of fits in what makes most sense for you. Because it's my firm opinion, this whole panel thing is how things are going over the next 5 years. Arbitrage. Everything is going arbitrage. The wholesalers, the biggest wholesalers in the nation, they figured that out through wholesaling. We all hate it, but the guys at the top of that chain, they don't mind. They're getting their money. They're able to use arbitrage with all the bird dogs and all that, using the internet and systems to do that at scale. Well, Zillow does that too on the retail side. That's how agents don't like it. They don't like that all their leads are going through Zillow, going to Opendoor, OfferPad, Redfin, and all that. They're selling the agent's leads back to the agent and 5 other agents to all bid on the same client that they have no chance of even, they may not even get. So arbitrage, if you can find a way to use that in your business on the wholesale side, or even on the retail side, it's another way to have more margin.
Well, these are my friends up here to my left, and I agree with pretty much everything they've said. I'll take it from a slightly different angle, so you don't hear the same story. I firmly believe that the fundamental principles of buying investment property, single-family houses, or any type of investment property, the fundamental principles, regardless of market, for the most part, goes unchanged. With some tweaking. I think your biggest tweaks that we're experiencing right now, and probably in the future, is the mathematical calculation that you use to arrive at your purchase price or your purchase offer. So there's tweaking there. There's also tweaking on how you're going to get your opportunities to find these houses. And I'm going to say, other than this inventory shift, meaning lack of inventory and this crazy seller's market we're in, the biggest change that I have seen, prior to this and now is technology. The way people are using technology to find houses. I don't know what lives online, but I get probably 10 to 15 calls and texts a day from people wanting to buy my stuff,
How many are in those phone calls, text messages, all that?
So I get a lot of them, but back to the point, that what we're talking about here, you really got to divide the question into 2 parts. You're gonna buy a real estate investment property with the intent to sell it quick for profit, a flip, okay? Or you're gonna hold it. Those are 2 completely mathematical, those are 2 completely different mathematical models of calculation. Totally different. Okay? If you buy a house you're intending to hold and make a mistake, you can rent and hold your way out of it. Okay? Where your negative decision, or your decision which was incorrect to buy it at the price, will eventually turn into a positive if you rent it. And I know Sean agrees with that one. If you intend to flip it for a quick profit, and you make a bad decision and pay too much, you're going to feel that sting pretty quick, okay, when you go to sell it, and you may not be able to recover from that mathematical mistake. So you got to divide it in. Are you going to buy and hold, you're going to buy and sell. For the people in the room that are new, this goes unchanged for years. You sell for cash and you hold for wealth. I'm a walking, talking billboard for appreciation. It's crazy. HAR statistics, not my statistics, Houston Association of Realtors, puts it at 16% for Houston in 2020. That's an incredible number. 2019 was 11. Okay? We've never experienced back-to-back years in the history of tracking the data of double-digit appreciation back-to-back years. Has never happened before. So, you got to figure out how you're going to get your opportunities to buy houses other than the obvious buying from other wholesalers and buying off their MLS, in my opinion, to get to where you want to get to in this market. You got to figure out other ways to do it. I'm not saying you don't buy off the MLS. I'm not saying you don't buy from wholesalers, but you got to find your way into the, like I said earlier, into the living rooms and, kitchens to really get them a little deeper. And we do it by marketing. I think everybody probably knows I'm a home investor guy. That's the guy we know who buys the houses, built for years, but it's a marketing machine, and that's how the motivated distressed sellers call us or email us, and it's the ticket for a lot of folks out there. But that marketing, how do you do it? Marketing is something you really got to look at. And it's different today than it was 24 months ago, drastically different. But I don't think the fundamentals, other than you tweak your math a little bit, I don't think the fundamental principles of buying real estate changes that much. The fundamental part of it.
No. Good. So I'm going to open this up to the audience here. What questions do you guys have for the panel? Who wants to be first?
It's always like that, slow first, and once you get the first one, then it's like last night.
Oh, yeah. Rob, do you have a question?
I'm just curious, how many people have bought real estate in the last 6 months right now? How many have lent on or invested in some sort of syndication in the last 6 months right now? Are things going good for you? Is anyone complaining about this market in the last 6 months? For those of you who didn't raise your hands, well, you're the guys you got to talk to. They start getting that stuff moving.
Mm-hmm. Let me add that. That's a really good point. I talk to probably as many investors as anybody. And, just through jet lending and everything. Talk to a lot of people daily. I, for some reason, started asking this not long ago, a month ago. I said, is your average profit greater today per deal? And this is when we talk about flips now. Is your average profit greater or less than it was last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? And it's almost unanimous. I'm making more money per deal today. So, it's good. When it turns, you make it good again, but you just make the right adjustments. When it turns, the turning, crashing market does not bother me. I actually look forward to it because we make adjustments.
I think one thing that a lot of people miss is the investors that go out of the business are the ones that stop. When the market changes and then they stop, that's when they get run over. At least that's what I've seen through kind of these little various cycles. But this is one question I always like to ask audiences, and I know I've done it at your event a couple of times, Eddie, when I'm standing on stage, and I'll say, hey, how many of y'all wish you bought more real estate 5 years ago? And everybody raises their hands, right? But then when I say, well, why aren't you buying property now? You're like, ooh, too expensive. And I'm like, you realize you've been saying that for 5 years now. Like, you've been saying the same thing for 5 years now. This waiting is costing you a lot. In fact, we did the math. Every time you go buy a house, it's costing you $4,000 a month. That's how much these things are appreciating. In fact, when I did my quote these days, and everybody giggled when I said it, but it's turned out to be very pathetic. If you think real estate's expensive now, just wait. The median home price, I said that on the radio, October 2017. The median home price has gone up $80,000 since October 2017. So if you're waiting, it's just going to cost you more. Look, you can get into real estate whatever you want. I mean, you can do what you want, but at the end of the day, you keep waiting. It's going to get more and more expensive. Any other questions from the audience?
Well, we have food ready.
Oh, food's ready.
And we got beer left, so we'll catch up to you. But we've got outside,
Outside.
and then where our cafe will soon be. They're set up. There's barbecue out there. There's some beer out there. Make sure you go help yourselves. Hang out for a little bit. We've got another stuff coming up at 7 o'clock tonight. So if you're hungry, go that way. If you're thirsty, go that way. And then we want to again thank everyone for coming out. We really appreciate you guys. Let's give a big hand to the panel up here.
Excellent. All right, go eat and we'll come back.
An empty nester, like to have a home that's like too big for us now. And for the second just